With Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, little top five. Rob, I think it's the hardest top five of the year. Talking about top five Tennessee, Georgia games since 1980. Man, there's a sled full to pick from.
At least we don't have to, dig through and, try to get one to make the cut that shouldn't. I mean, it's harder to trim some out. I mean, there's going to be a couple left out that were, really good ball games. I mean, in Tennessee's way. I mean, it's been a great series. Georgia fans probably didn't think so in the 90s. It's skewed back the other way a little bit, but some really, really good football games going both ways. And, I'll throw one out to start it off and go with, I guess, Eric Age's freshman year. Tennessee goes down there. Georgia looks strong. I guess probably Eric's first road start, certainly first SEC road start. And, kind of really took the reins from Brett Schaefer in that battle. I think stamped himself as a guy. Tennessee wins 19-14 and, set up a nice little run.
Well, and that was a Georgia team that the week before had handled LSU at home.
David Green.
Yeah, Georgia looked like one of the best, top five teams in the country at that point. You're thinking there's no way a freshman quarterback's going to do that. They come out, they hit Brett Smith early on that play, and it's Jesse Mahalona, and it's John Chavis's defense that really stifled the Georgia running game. I guess the other takeaway from that game for me is what Albert Tuina did against David Pollock that day, and they just absolutely ransacked. That's the best game he played in his Tennessee career.
I don't think there's any doubt.
That Tennessee offensive line stymied a Georgia front that was really good the week before against LSU. That one's certainly got to be in that top five. I think one that's debatable to being in the top five is the 95 game here. You got Kirby Smart's actually on the field as a DB in that game. Bryce Hunter drops the ball across the middle, and then it's Peyton Manning leading the comeback the other way. Jeff Hall makes the game-winning field goal.
As time expires, right?
As time expires, basically they win that game. Robert Edwards ran for a gazillion yards before he got hurt in that game. But I'll never forget Jeff Hall and having conversations with him afterwards, years later, that was the most important kick for his career. Makes a game winner as a freshman early in his career, and then we all know what happened to him in '98 with the opportunity.
I think that one gets lost a little bit just because Tennessee was so good. That was Peyton's sophomore year. You're getting ready to reel off a 4-year stretch that's unprecedented in program history. But I mean, if you don't knock Georgia out that night, I mean, it maybe, I'm not saying that it impacts Peyton's legacy at all, but that dominant run looks a little less dominant. And I mean, Georgia was a really good football team then too.
They certainly were. You go back a year before in '94, that was a good Georgia football team. Peyton had not arrived yet. Jerry Kolk was
now,
out.
Does this one make our list, or are we just talking about it?
I'm just talking about it because I love this game in '94 because Larry Munson's talking about the big thighs of Little Man Stewart, and they can't tackle him. They give him to him on that toss sweep, and Little Man just made everybody miss, and that offensive line was dominant.
Alcoa's Billy Williams had a huge catch.
I think, yes, he did. And I think in that game, Todd Helton was something like 7 of 9 maybe in that game, or 9 of 11 throwing the football. It's as nervous as Todd's ever been going into a football game. He'll never admit it now, but even Friday night, he turned to Coach Kuckler and said, "I'm not sure I can do this." Coach said, "We got this," and they ran it down their throat all night long.
That was a classic Philip Fulmer offensive line. Some guys. I think it's interesting because that was probably the last group of guys that he had groomed as an assistant coach.
You're exactly right.
And they were seniors. A lot of those guys were. His kind of offensive line, and they mauled Georgia.
Yeah, they certainly did. They were dominant there. Speaking of game as an assistant coach, the '92 game's got to be in there as well.
I think it's got to be on our list. So we're going to put this one at 3?
I don't know. I'm just throwing out games.
It's one of the 5.
It's definitely one of the 5.
It's definitely one of the 5.
We'll put it at 3 if you want to.
1992, Heath Schuler, first year starter? Yes.
Yeah.
Taking over for Andy Kelly, first year starter. Philip is in the process of moving Johnny out and moving in, and I don't think it happens without this game.
Well, no, it doesn't. I mean, you got Ronald Davis on a 4th down conversion to win that game.
Like 18?
Yeah, if they don't win that game there, how does things shape out that year? They beat Georgia, come back the next week, beat 4th-ranked Florida in that game, and at that point in time, Johnny Majors is wondering, hey, what's going to happen with me? And so he tries to come back too early in an effort to save his job. We all know what happened there. But that was the game offensively. It was such an explosion for Tennessee. Philip Fulmer, the offensive coordinator, play caller as a head coach, leads that team to a road win in the SEC. That one was big for the landscape of the 90s and the direction that the Tennessee football program was going.
Enormous.
You could argue that was maybe his number 1 or number 2 in this list in terms of the impact that it had in this series or in the history of Tennessee football.
But I think these next two are a little near and dear to Tennessee fans' heart.
All right.
You have to put 2016 in there, just the way that one ended. That was the most exciting, probably last 5 minutes of the football game that I can remember. You know, you think Georgia's got it won when they somehow inexplicably get somebody deep behind Tennessee's secondary for a touchdown with under a minute left, and then Dobbs comes back and hits Jawan Jennings in the end zone.
And you're top 5. 2016.
No, undefeated.
It's not that far long ago that you're the top 5 or top 10 team.
Top of the mountain for Butch Jones, and then they just fall off a cliff.
Yeah, and that's one of those plays you're going to remember where you were when it happened. Whether you were in the stadium, listening on the radio, watching on TV, everybody's going to remember where they were.
Georgia fans as well.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes of that game. Well, Georgia fans are also going to remember 0-1, which doesn't make the list.
Not making the list.
And a great play call from Randy Sanders on the screen pass. But yeah, you got to put the Dobbs Hail Mary up there in there for sure.
I mean, just that whole and the fact that Georgia had just seemingly broken Tennessee's heart, you know, mere seconds before that makes that play even more important.
Oh, Georgia fans are talking hobnail boot game part 2 is what they're talking at that point. And obviously Tennessee comes back and breaks their hearts. And then number 1 for me is going to be the 98 game.
I agree.
That was where Tennessee emerged themselves as a national championship.
You just lost Jamal
team.
Lewis. How much, my God, what's going to happen to the offense? T hadn't looked great, to that point in time as a starting, they beat Florida kind of in spite of T rather than because of it. Jamal had a huge game against Auburn before he got hurt in that game. And, and then, man, that defense just stepped up. I mean, it was tremendous.
Well, I mean, Al Wilson tells a story about standing at the line of scrimmage, barking at Quincy Carter all night long and just telling him that, he was coming. And I remember interviewing Cozy Coleman on the field afterwards. He said, yeah, we saw the quit in their eyes in the third quarter. We wanted it more than they did. Philip Fulmer throws his hat in the stands, goes into the post-game press conference, calls it a program win, cites Judy Jackson and recruiting, and calls it more than just a game win, calls it a program win for his program.
I mean, think about some of the guys from Georgia that were on the field that day.
Dion, Cozy, Fred. Fred wasn't from Georgia, but Jamal didn't play, but there was a bunch of Georgia guys there.
Dion?
My lasting story from that 98 game is we're in the Vol Network booth, and I'm spotting, and to my right is David Cutcliffe. And in the second quarter, T. Martin was bad.
Doing the interception in the red zone, right?
And David Cutcliffe got him on the phone, and you could hear David through the glass. And it wasn't a berating cussing him but Rob, T. Martin felt about that big when he got to the end of it. He blistered T. Martin and basically told him it was time to grow up and either be a college quarterback or go back to Mobile, Alabama and do something else. And from that moment on, the light switch flipped. And in the second half, he was fantastic, and from that point on the rest of the season, because of T's emergence, they became a true national championship contender with that defense that they had to ride with that year. Just unbelievable. I'll never forget hearing Cutcliffe's voice and just the urgency and it was a throwdown of all throwdowns to T. Martin at that point. And from that point on, Tennessee took off and was running. So that's why the 98 game is number 1 in my book.
It's been a great series.
It has been a great series. A lot of great games. We'll see if Tennessee can find a way to make Saturday a great game. I'm sure we left some out. Kiffin beat them. You got Butch Jones with another win in there.
The rally in 06.
You got a lot of games that we've left out of this deal that I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with. So jump on the General's Quarters and talk about it. Tennessee and Georgia, top 5 games.